And so a condition of balance that was maintained suddenly fell apart. And these muscles that had been recruited to make up for the muscles that weren't being ordered, because you see, there are natural muscles that could have been used, but in order to get around them, other parts of me were called into play. Now, the reason I'm saying this to you is because I want you to start understanding something that's very important about this imbalanced state of our own emotions and psychology, our thoughts and feelings. Why is a person so easily pushed down, falls down, angered, fearful, worried? These states, these chronic emotional states that stay in us. Why is it that we don't find a balance that allows us to be kind, regardless of the circumstances we're in? Why isn't there a patience that can take being pushed by anything? These are very important questions if we want to have a real life, if we want to understand our present circumstances. So here's where we're working to now. What do you call on? What do you recruit? Now work with me, take a deep breath. What do we recruit in moments of crisis in our lives? Do you understand what I'm saying? Oh God, just something, oh no. And what do you call on in a moment like that? Say it. Thought. I call on thought. There isn't even a me that calls on thought. The crisis occurs, and suddenly I'm knee-deep in a pile of considerations about what to do in this situation. Yes or no? Yes. This is what human beings call on. Now, you can say, no, I don't call on thought. I call on God, or I call on the light, or whatever it is. But I want to prove something to you quickly. That if you were calling on what was genuine, as opposed to a sentimental image, that the problem would be resolved, which we're going to prove. So I want just to get this real nailed down right now, that when we have a problem in life, when we're heart heavy, when we're worried, when we're frightened, that we call on thought in order to produce lost balance. Yes or no? Now, what does thought call on to produce this balance? More thoughts. Thought calls on the past, doesn't it? Thought calls on its plans, its spiritual ideas in order to solve problems like this. Thought calls on all kinds of things. And then thought will call on a future that it creates out of reconfiguring the past. Thought will call up a future where I won't have this problem because I'm going to get rid of her. I'm going to change him. I'm going to move. I'm going to get a different job. So thought is always calling upon thought in order to create a balance. Now, the key here is that thought is not intended to be a balancing force in us. You don't use, this is an old idea, you don't use gasoline to put out a fire, do you? Well, what got knocked over? What is it that allowed the moment, that simple glance that person gave you, or a word that someone said? Why would something as simple and as innocuous as a comment cause you to topple over? And the answer is because you live in thought, images, ideas about yourself. So all someone has to do is psychologically accost that which you're standing on and saying is real and me and this is what's true. And as soon as something challenges it, the whole thing, like Humpty Dumpty, comes falling down, doesn't it? How many of you had your life fall apart? And when your life falls apart, what do you put it back together with? Can you say it? Thought, or thought's ally, negative states. Thought loves the glue of negativity because when we can get negative over what happened to us, it proves to us that we really don't want to be in that state of ourselves. And that somehow if we could just stay, just get angry enough or worried or frightened enough that this is going to put us back together again. But there's a very key idea here, and it's this. First of all, thought can't balance anything because thought always adds weight to one side or the other. Doesn't it? When you're thinking about something, you're always adding thoughts here or you're taking thought away there, which means you're always working in one of these opposites. And no thought can balance what thought has created in its imbalanced state.